I hate to admit it, but the Eagles are schooling the Cowboys with the way that they are building their team ahead of the 2024 NFL season. And the latest wide receiver news are another example as to how they're doing it. Let's get to it. What is up, everyone, and welcome to A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. I'm your host, Mauricio Rodriguez. A lot to talk about. The Cowboys reported two voluntary workouts ahead of the 2024 NFL season, and not there was CeeDee Lamb. As expected, he's holding out, and again, this is voluntary workouts that we are talking about, but CeeDee was not there as he awaits his new contract ahead of the 2024 NFL season. He's on a contract year and wants a new deal naturally because he's been an all-pro receiver and consistently productive with the Dallas Cowboys. And according to Dallas Morning News, the Cowboys haven't even had substantial, is the word that Calvin Watkins recently used, substantial talks with the receivers. So naturally, he's not there, and he shouldn't be. He really shouldn't, especially not for voluntary workouts. It's going to get interesting because pretty soon, mandatory minicamp is going to come around in June once the NFL draft is over, once the OTAs are over as well. We're going to get into mandatory minicamp territory, and I don't know if CeeDee is going to be there either. And heck, when the Cowboys get to Oxnard, we're not sure about that either. And you know the reason why? They're just doing things the long way. The Cowboys are. They're not extending Dak Prescott yet. They're not doing Micah Parsons' deal yet. They're not doing CeeDee's. They let so many players leave in free agency, and that includes Tyron Smith, who signed, quite honestly, a pretty similar deal to the one that he had with the Cowboys in 2023, but maybe with a higher cost, especially in the salary cap. And they even let Jonathan Hankins walk in free agency, even though he signed a very inexpensive deal with the Seattle Seahawks. So this is just the way that the Cowboys are doing things this offseason. And it became pretty frustrating because of the comic timing of the simultaneous wide receiver news for the Philadelphia Eagles. And what I'm talking about is while the Cowboys are not even getting heated up contract negotiations with CeeDee, the Eagles already signed DeVonta Smith to a 3-year deal, and they keep building this team ahead of the 2024 season by spending a whole lot of money. And we can get into the details right now. First and foremost, DeVonta Smith did not reset the market or anything like that, but the Eagles were savvy enough to get ahead of the Jamar Chase negotiations, the CeeDee negotiations, the Justin Jefferson negotiations, and they're going to pay DeVonta $25 million per year in new money. Now, this is a 3-year contract extension on top of his current deal, which runs through 2024. So that means they're not really overpaying for DeVonta Smith, and a big part of it has to be that they got ahead of the wide receiver market early. Now, here's where it gets frustrating, and here's why I talk about the Eagles schooling the Cowboys in this team building approach. Do you know how much, forget about the cap for a minute, and we'll get into the cap as well, but do you know how much the Eagles have spent for the 2024 offseason? The number before the DeVonta Smith deal, by the way, in cash was $319 million. That's what the Eagles have spent this offseason. That is the third highest amount in the league. Again, before the DeVonta Smith news. Compare that to the Cowboys, who have spent $11 million. That is a wild, enormous difference between these two franchises. One has spent $319 million, the other one $11 million. And when you consider that the Eagles have already paid Jalen Hurts, and they are paying him a deal over $51 million per year. That's what it's worth. They also have in total 8 players who rank in the top 5 of highest paid players at their respective positions. They've got the 4th highest paid QB per Benjamin Solak, 4th highest paid running back, 4th highest paid wide receiver, 5th highest paid wide receiver, because they're paying both, Like they're paying A.J. Brown, they're paying DeVonta Smith, fifth highest paid tight end, fourth highest paid offensive tackle, fifth highest paid offensive tackle. They made Landon Dickerson the highest paid guard as well. This is a team that is going all in. This is what an all in looks like. And they're not even doing it by compromising the future of the franchise either. Sure, if Jalen Hurts doesn't turn out to be great, they're going to have to make up for that. It's going to be quite a hurdle to overcome. But they're also not doing things the way that the Rams did it, for example, when they built that Super Bowl contending team in 2018. So when I see this on the screen right now, and I see the Eagles continuing to be proactive, continuing to get deals done early, continuing to come up with creative contract structures like the one that they pulled off with Jalen Hurts, where there's a bazillion Boyd years and they're keeping the cap hit lower than $20 million for a wild amount of time. When I see that and I look at what the Cowboys are doing, and more importantly, I look at the justification behind their decision making, where Stephen Jones is saying to the reporters and Jerry Jones is telling reporters, well, there's a cap hit and we cannot pay everybody. There's only so much pie to go around. You know all of the cliches. You know all of the quotes. It just doesn't make sense to me how a team can go out there and spend $319 million the same offseason that the Cowboys are spending $11 million and still have a higher amount of salary cap space. The cap is set at $255 million for 2024, and the Eagles are spending over $300 million more than the Cowboys are. That alone, that number alone, without any more context added, should be enough for people to figure out what executives are talking about when they talk about cash over cap. You can absolutely spend much more money if you want to in a single offseason and manipulate the salary cap for things to work out in the books. But in order to get to those benefits, in order to really exploit all of that mathematics magic that you can pull off in the books, you got to be proactive. You cannot wait to extend people at the last possible moment, which is quite honestly what the Cowboys have done for a long time. How many contract extensions that they've signed in recent years have been when a player holds out, like Ezekiel Elliott did back then? How many quarterbacks have gone out there and played a year under the franchise tag? And I've got a very important answer for that question. It's been Drew Brees, Kirk Cousins, and Dak Prescott since 1996. The rest of the teams that find or stumble upon a franchise quarterback, those are getting paid earlier. Or in any case, they're getting traded away in order to rip off the benefits from having such a quarterback. Not the Cowboys, though. They let Dak Prescott play under a contract year, under a franchise tag year. They're going to let him apparently do that again this year, this time not under a tag, but on a contract year, unless they extend him before. And you're playing this dangerous game with CeeDee Lamb, who has really done nothing wrong in the last few years. Like, he's been what you wanted him to be. And when you handed him the keys in 2023 to be a player that they were targeting over 10 times per game, he delivered an all-pro season for you. So why are the Cowboys simply just not more proactive in order to keep manipulating the salary cap and build teams the way that the Eagles and many other Super Bowl contending teams do? Because when you look at the results, sure, the Cowboys have the regular season edge over the Eagles. They have a positive record against them since 2010. But the Eagles have won the Super Bowl. They did it in 2017, 2018. 5 years later, with a completely new project, new quarterback, new head coach, they went and made the Super Bowl again. They lost it, but it was a close showdown against the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. So all that I'm saying here is that the Cowboys, there's just no explanation as to why they wouldn't look at their way of building teams and figure out and realize that something needs to change. Draft and develop works to a certain point. But at one moment, you got to be willing to be more aggressive in free agency, to spend a little bit more money, and to not let an all-pro tackle leave your team, a nose tackle that is a starter for your team leave as well in free agency when you only got one other healthy nose tackle who you don't really know who he is in Mazi Smith, and so many other needs headed into free agency, into the NFL draft, excuse me, with two significant voids at offensive line, with no long-term extension for your QB, with no long-term extension for your star wide receiver, or Micah Parsons, who has been described by many as one of the best defenders in football right now. This is not the way to do things. And your NFC East top rival is showing you exactly why. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. Hit the like button for me, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.